In The Godfather, one of the most key moments is the scene where Michael Corleone makes the decision to kill Sollozzo and McCluskey to avenge the attack on his father. Walter Murch was the post-production supervisor and explains how the sound design enhanced the scene.
Francis and Nino Rota had decided to have no music throughout the whole scene. The other unusual thing was that it was a fairly long scene, the restaurant scene, and a lot of it was in Italian with no subtitles.
I'm gonna speak Italian to Mike. Go ahead.
I mean, that's a risky thing to do today, let alone 40-something years ago.
Mi dispiace.
So it threw the audience a curveball. They didn't quite, what's going on? So there's no music, which usually guides you, and you don't understand what they're talking about. So you have to pay a lot of attention to body language and expression. But I thought, well, let's do something with sound that might help the moment. And because I grew up in New York, not far from where that restaurant theoretically was, I knew that there were a lot of subway trains that in that part of New York had come up above ground. And so they were elevated tracks. And those trains make a peculiar noise because the whole structure vibrates. And I thought maybe we could introduce that sound and let it go away as if a train passed, and then bring another one in at slightly louder.
Afraid 2,000 young bummers.
And then as the scene goes on, 4 or 5 times this train sound, which has no visual equivalent. There's nothing that introduces the sound. You don't know what it is really, unless you kind of intuit it. At the very end of the scene, Michael comes out of the restroom, and Clemenza had told him,
and when you come back, you come out blasted.
in other words, come out of the room and shoot them dead. And he doesn't. And so we, the audience, are wondering consciously or subconsciously, what, is he not going to shoot them? He sits down and he listens, but in the background, this train sound gets louder and louder and louder. And Al Pacino is doing a really interesting thing with his eyes. Suddenly he stands up, pulls out the gun and shoots, and the sound stops. Which means it wasn't a real sound. A real sound wouldn't have stopped like that. So the sound of the bullet kills the screeching sound. And some audiences are not even aware that there is that sound. They interpret the sound as we're listening to the neurons in Michael's brain because he's making this incredible life-changing decision. Not only to kill 2 people, but to kill the dream that he expressed at the beginning of the film, which is he's not going to be part of this family. It's adventuresome, particularly for the time, because there's nothing visually that corresponds to it. That was a lesson to me that even on a big Hollywood film where you think everything is just sort of by the book, that you can throw these curves into the soundtrack and actually enhance the film as a result.